Well, let's talk about some controversy. Don Morocco is going to attempt to stick up for Billy Graham, and they begin to feud with Valentine and, of course, Jimmy Hart. But it abruptly ends when Morocco was let go. Valentine has claimed in interviews that he begged and pleaded not to let Morocco go. Do you remember what happened here and why Greg went to bat so hard to keep Morocco around?
Well, I can imagine Greg, just in general, he was friends with Morocco. I don't know what the hell Morocco did, but I could definitely see Greg trying to save his friend, and because he liked Don.
Of course, on the other channel in 1987, unbelievably, Ronnie Garvin beat Ric Flair to become the NWA World Champion. But fast forward to 88, and he's no longer with the NWA or Jim Crockett Promotions. Now he's brought into the WWF, and he almost immediately begins a feud with Greg the Hammer Valentine, which I remember fondly, from SummerSlam and whatnot. Why was Ronnie the right opponent for Greg?
Because he was blonde.
I mean, really, in stature,
beat the shit out of each other.
They're both kind of barrel-chested, sawed-off, thick-looking dudes, both blonde hair. They're going to chop the shit out of each other. It is a similar style, and they say in MMA, styles make fights. Is that sort of the thinking with Ronnie?
It was, because we knew that they would beat the living shit out of each other. And again, throughout the night, when you have a variety show of different talent, you're going to look at them and go, okay, man, this is different than everything else on the card.
Believable.
Very believable.
Coming off Mania, Valentine is looking to conclude his feud with Garvin and challenges him to a retirement match, with Garvin accepting on April 29th on Superstars. Valentine gets the win, and Garvin is forced to retire. Garvin would become a referee. Who's putting creative together here in this era? Is this you, Pat? Combination of you guys?
Pat and Vince.
Okay. What'd you think of that whole retirement angle?
I thought it was clever in the different ways that we would get Garvin back involved to fuck with Valentine.
It is really well done. Valentine and Hart get Garvin fired from refereeing, so he transitions into being a ring announcer. And at
World's
SummerSlam,
worst ring announcer in the world. And then in this corner, they weigh in at the fat 2 flabby 100-pound. Yeah, it was horrible. It's great.
but that's the idea, right?
I understand, but
Vince loved it, didn't
all
he?
goddamn French Canadians that,
I bet Pat thought he did a good job.
Pat thought he did a great job because Pat probably gave it to him. But it was like I couldn't understand Pat either. At the base.
So Valentine comes out to Garvin's introduction for his match against Hercules, and Garvin announces Valentine is Hercules' so-called opponent, and at 249 pounds, overweight by 30 pounds, amongst other things. Of course, Valentine cheats to win. Garvin announces Hercules as the winner, and it's a brawl after the match between the three. Valentine and Hart demand Garvin be reinstated, and they get their wish. So the suspension angle was used a lot in this era to get guys back in the ring and just advance the storyline, and this was well done, man.
In hindsight, you ever think Jack Tunney was a pretty shitty president?
I didn't really think about that, but I think you're onto something there.
Yeah.
Who came up with the idea of Ronnie Garvin also using a shin guard? And I think he called his the Hammer Jammer, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, matter of fact, that was either Pat or Ronnie. It was kind of the collective of, okay, how do you combat this? Well, you combat it with the same thing. So Greg's saying that his isn't used as a weapon, and they're saying that theirs isn't used as a deal. Greg had a legitimate injury that he needed his for.
Well, it builds to a submission match at the Royal Rumble from 1990. The Observer gave it 2 stars. The guys get plenty of time, 16 minutes and 52 seconds. Ron Garvin wins with a Scorpion Deathlock in a match where the only way to win was by submission. Meltzer says, actually, they should have called it a sudden death match rather than an I Quit match, because the minute the thing started, the crowd, which was really up for the previous 2 matches, just died on the spot. It had nothing to do with the match, but fans were into neither personality. They worked a real slow pace, but it was stiff, and the closest thing to a good match on the undercard. So he is complimentary of the work, but he does explain that in his opinion, it wasn't really resonating with fans. And this is probably the height of the quote-unquote entertainment era of the WWE. You got guys carrying snakes to the ring and birds to the ring and dogs to the ring. Oh my. Do you think these guys were maybe just too much wrestling for the WWF audience at the time?
I think so. And, Ronnie Garvin is one of those guys guilty of having one of the most entertaining, great storyteller.
Yeah.
Great, funny son of a bitch outside of the ring.
But it didn't translate.
Didn't translate always on the other side. And especially, I think, with the language barrier a little bit with Ronnie, it was tough to understand him. But when you're just sitting there bullshitting, Ronnie Garvin's the fucking funniest guy in the room. I mean, he's the most entertaining guy in the room when you don't have a camera on him.
It's funny because you almost feel like when you go back and you watch Ronnie Garvin matches and interviews, hey, this guy takes himself maybe too seriously.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this is also the guy who dressed in drag for the thing with Flair. So it's hard to reconcile, like, where do you draw the line? Like, okay, he takes himself too seriously. Well, here he is in drag, so maybe not, but it didn't always translate when the red light was on.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move along.
Yeah.
After we transition, or after that match, of course, we realize it's time for a change.